Starseed Ascension welcomes guests from a variety of backgrounds to gain perspectives, experiences, and information in the paranormal, spiritual, and ET space. We are a community of spiritual explorers who seek to help raise consciousness. And now, here's your host of Starseed Ascension, Jamie Voss Love.
Hello and welcome back to Starseed Ascension. I am your host, Jamie Voss Love, and tonight we have with us another very special guest. He is a multidimensional healer, Starseed activator, YouTube creator, and intuitive who has the power to heal. And after a spontaneous spiritual awakening in 2022, his soul started to speak to him, and he saw Source God in front of him. And his life changed when his psychic abilities opened up, receiving healing energy, which led him on a journey of aliens, abductions, and upgrades, as well as plant medicine and navigating different dimensions. So he is a full-time energy healer and spiritual coach, and he also has his successful line of high vibe tees and hoodies called Heal. And those are infused with energy and love, good vibrations and intentions. He has a YouTube channel that covers many areas, including spirituality, aliens, plant medicine, starseeds, and more. So please welcome our guest tonight, Andrew Lethbridge.
Hey, Jamie. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm amazing. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. We're so happy to connect with you. And for those of you who don't know, Andrew and I had connected on a previous event called Codes of Ascension, and he did a wonderful activation and energy healing, and it was so beautiful. And so, yeah, good to see you again, Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to know what we're talking about today. It's a wild ride.
Yeah, well, we're talking about you today, so we would love to.
It probably will be a bit wild then.
Yeah, we will get wild, and all things are fair game, all topics. So, for those of you who don't know anything about you, would love to. I know you told me a little bit about your awakening experience, but it's so profound. So I would love if you feel called to share any and all details about that.
Definitely. So I would say my life is split into two halves, before awakening and afterwards. And my life, literally, on that day I had my awakening, my life changed. I'm a totally different person. I didn't even know this could happen. I lived before that I was in fashion for 25 years. And even though I've just turned 46 and I had my awakening at 43, some may say I was late to the party, but I was just fashionably late, I used to say. But before we get to my awakening, I think it's really important to talk about what happened before that. So when I was young, I was highly sensitive. I just felt everyone's energy. I was anxious all the time. And I just really felt different to everyone. I literally did feel like an alien. But at that point, obviously, we didn't know that kind of information back then. I didn't realize I was Starseed. And when I was young, I was overweight as well. And also I was coming to terms with being gay as well. So basically, when they were giving out the list of issues, I was like, I'll do it all. When I was young, it was quite, at school, I was bullied and just never really felt like myself. I didn't feel like I could be myself. And then when I was around 16 and a half, my dad got cancer and he died. And that was a big catalyst actually for me to change. So after that, I lost all my weight. I started to party. And I was kind of just out every night having wild time. And within that time, I went from being quite big to really small. And then I got discovered and asked to be a model. So that kind of was a really exciting time for me. However, it kind of, at that point, I had like an eating disorder as well. I literally had everything. So kind of when everyone says, oh, you look amazing and you're not eating, it kind of fuels that fire as well. And to be honest, I didn't last long in modeling. I just felt really uncomfortable with myself and just didn't really feel like I could be the true me. So after that, I got into fashion and I carved out a career for myself. And I actually had a company with like over 20 staff, but it just wasn't a career for me. It was really stressful. It made me super anxious. In 2014, I was sick the whole year. I kept going to the doctors and they were like, you've got Crohn's disease, you've got chronic fatigue, colitis. And basically I'd go for the test and then it didn't. And I was literally sick for the whole year. And then in that moment, I discovered a Buddhist mind coach. And I started to have acupuncture with him and he started to teach me how to meditate. And that actually saved me at that point, which was a marker in my life, actually. So from that, I would like meditate and I'd read The Secret and think, oh my God, I'm so spiritual because I read The Secret. I think that's like sometimes the way in for a lot of people, isn't it? Like kind of reading these kind of access point books. And then my company started to blow up and just get like really successsul. And just, it was just kind of not a career for me. I was doing the sales and there was like high pressure dealing with like these big retailers in the UK and across the world, actually. And then on 3rd of March, 2023, that night, I didn't sleep the whole night. I was stressed. One of my customers had asked me to like cancel 100 orders with my factory, which meant the whole factory would go under. And I said I wouldn't do it, but they was like, I'm going to call you at 9 o'clock in the morning and we want them orders cancelled. We actually don't care. So obviously, I'm really ethical. And so I stayed up the whole night worrying. Literally, I didn't sleep. I was like panicking. So at 6 a.m. in the morning, I went to the park. And it was really horrible. It was like March. It was raining in London. It was like windy and like minus degrees. And I was walking around the park with my hood up and I remember, and I was like, I hate my life. I hate my customers. Like, I can't live this life anymore. And then in my mind, something said to me, go and sit on a tree that had fallen down. So I went and sat on a tree. And in that moment, my life changed. Basically, my soul shot up my body and started to say to me, I love you. I've always loved you. I will always be here for you. I'll catch you if you fall. And as it rushed up my body, Jamie, no lie, I felt love that I've never felt before. I was like crying. Obviously, before I was crying because I was like, oh my God, I'm so anxious. But that love that flooded my body was like nothing. That the only thing I could compare it with, if you gave me all the ecstasy tablets of the world. And by the way, I don't do drugs. So I just want to clarify that. At this point, I didn't drink, I didn't do drugs. Like for me, a good night is like drinking peppermint tea. So I was kind of like totally sober and not like, I was just living a really clean life at this point. And it felt like I'd done like all the drugs in the world, the love that I felt. And then it hit my third eye. And in front of me, my dad and my cat that had died was standing in front of me in the park, smiling at me. And then behind them was like a swirling water full of light, which at the time I'd never even heard the word source, but in that moment source was in front of me with colors that I'd never even seen before. And literally it just changed my life in that moment. Like, you cannot live the same life after you saw that. So I was just like hysterically crying. If anyone had seen me, they must have thought, oh my God, someone's died. But it was like pure happiness. And the whole experience, I don't even know how long it lasted for. It was just like incredible. And then I started to get like just downloads in my head about being reincarnated. And they showed me that basically, so obviously there's a waterfall of light. This is the easiest way to explain it. And they showed me a little drop out and go into my mum's stomach to say that my mum's source, I'm source, your source, and we're all part of source. It's just like so beautiful. And I didn't even really believe in reincarnation, or like I wasn't religious. So this happening to me was like just changed my moment, my life in that moment. And then from that, I just started to get energy in my hands. I started to see the craziest stuff. The first couple of days, I was like literally it was like heaven on earth, like everything. I was so happy. I remember being in Starbucks and I had my music on and I literally felt like I was going to dance in front of everyone because I was just so happy. And that day I got home and I was dancing in the front room and I remember just going like this and then 10 hands just followed. It was just like that, just amazing. And then from that moment, just like the energy opened up, I started to see energy. Along with that, some crazy things happened. Like one night I went to bed and basically as I was about to get into bed, like this portal opened in my room and then this like fly entity of light flew out. So I quickly ran out the room. And from that moment as well, I started to get memories from when I was young. And before this, if you'd asked me about aliens, I would have said, yeah, in Star Wars or Star Trek. I didn't actually believe that these were like real things in the universe. I'd never really even thought about it. And basically I remembered a memory. I was around 6 and it must have been like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And basically I got out of bed and I walked down the landing and something grabbed me. And my dad at the time was like my height now, so like 6'2". But this was like 7 or 8 feet tall. It was like, and I remember the anxiety rushed through my body. And then all I remember is the next day waking up in my bed. So I kept thinking, why have I suddenly got this memory that, and I remember at the time, I went back and asked my mum and dad the next morning what happened, and they have no idea. No, like obviously, if it was my mum and dad, they'd be like, you're being naughty, go back to bed. But there was just like there was no memory of what happened between that evening and the next morning. But to be honest, I didn't really, at that point, I was just like, why does this memory keep coming up to me? So from that, obviously the energy started to open up in me. And I remember Zooming a friend and I said, can you close your eyes? So I put my hand in front of the camera and she was like, oh my God, what are you doing to me? I can feel your energy. So from that, I started to like heal people. And then also, even though I had energy, I trained in Reiki as well, because obviously I needed to know how to handle people and like having that one-to-one. So I then trained to become a Reiki master as well. So that's kind of, that moment changed my life. And it was such an amazing year of my life. Literally, that year I was on the highest vibration. However, it did have repercussions in my life because I changed and I've been my partner for 23 years soon. So we'd had like 21, 22 years together. And then suddenly I was a different person. So we had to like navigate that in our relationship as well, which was like super tough as well. And also we had a really codependent relationship before. And then suddenly I was like, I'm so happy, do what you want. Like I support you. But obviously when you've had a really codependent, that other person takes it as you don't care anymore. But I felt so free in life that I wanted them to feel like that as well.
Yeah.
That was a really challenging period with the relationship.
Yeah, I can imagine. And gosh, I don't even know where to begin. So many questions. That's amazing.
Well, that's a filter.
Oh yeah, I know there's more. But just off the get-go, so what you described is, an awakening experience seems to be, and it's interesting too, because not everyone has the galactic component of that immediately. Sometimes that will, awaken later. It sounds like all of that just activated all at once, which seems very powerful. Do you just kind of, based on that experience, that oneness with everyone, that unconditional love that you felt for yourself and kind of that high vibration that you were in, just wanting to share all of that love with everybody, do you feel like that was a glimpse of where we're sort of headed as we all kind of make this journey together to a place of that unconditional love? Did it give you kind of a glimpse into what's possible here on Earth?
Jamie, all I can tell you that is if everyone had my awakening, there would be no war, there would be no hate in the world. It would just change everything. And I wish this for everything. Obviously, there was some like negatives to it, but ultimately it changed my life. And that love I've never felt from my mum, my partner, like any animals that I've ever, like, that with your animals, you're so bonded, but this love was like different, and like just feeling that source like over my body was just like, it's just, and I didn't even believe, no one ever told me actually. It's funny because also after it happened to me, I went back to my Buddhist mind coach and said, this has happened to me. And he cried. And I said, why are you crying? He said, because this happened to me 3 times and I never wanted to tell you because I didn't want you, just in case it didn't happen for you. And I said, well, why does no one talk about this? And he was like, it's not spoken about. So in that moment, I was like, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to tell everyone I've ever met that, like, it was almost like coming out for the second time, like now, like my spirituality, but also as well, I started my YouTube as well. Cause I was like, I was really fortunate because I was in a really like negative place and it lifted me out of that. But some people, if they were in a good place and that happened, they could think they're like having psychosis. So I was like, I'm just going to start speaking about it and sharing this with people, which was kind of been my mission within this.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And when you were talking about even sort of being guided, because it sounded like, you had this healing energy in your hands. And I know you then went on and trained in Reiki. Did the Reiki happen after the experience you had?
Yeah, so the Reiki, the funny thing was I'd had Reiki for the second time the day before my awakening. So I think basically my chakras have been cleared. Yeah. And then the stress of the whole situation, and my guides were like, let's switch him on. But also the thing was, I'm like, before that, I wouldn't believe, say you told me this, I'd be like, really? I wouldn't have believed it. So like, they're like, send his dad out, send his dead cat out. And then they'd be like, we better send God as well. Because otherwise, if he doesn't see God, he's still not going to believe it. So I feel like they sent me the whole shebang, because had it just been my dad, I'd be like, I'm just imagining it. But because obviously the source, and they started to download like about reincarnation and all these things that I didn't even know about. And I'd never even heard the word source before. I would say like the universe, God, or even though I'm not religious, so I wasn't even like heavily into like God or anything like that. So all these like things just started to open up in me that that I just didn't even know just existed.
Yeah. And you mentioned your relationship too, which I think is important, even for people who are empathic and have the energetic sensitivities. That can be hard being in certain relationships, even family, as well as significant partnerships, and love, with our loved ones. If they don't understand those sensitivities, right? That you may be like feeling an emotion that's unexpressed for somebody else. Prior to your experience, I know you mentioned, having to navigate that in your relationship, but was there an understanding of your sensitivities already prior to your awakening?
I just think because my partner's not super emotional and I'm quite emotional. So I think you just put it down to, that person's emotional. They're quite sensitive. But the old me was I was kind of like bullish, but also sensitive as well. Does that make sense? I was kind of like, I could like stand up for myself, but also super sensitive as well. So it's kind of like over the years, I'd built this character to protect myself.
Yeah.
So I totally released that character. And also what's really funny about the first like year and a half of my awakening, I was just trying to wake my partner up, and just trying to basically drive him crazy. And then you just have to realize people are on their own journey. And like in the end, I've just given up now. And which is really funny because actually 2 weeks ago, so I do like a cosmic Zoom group healing every other Sunday. And it's on Zoom. And basically I hold it in my front room and my partner joins from the bedroom. And then at the end I said, does anyone want to share? And a few people shared. And when I got off the Zoom, they ran in and was like, oh my God, I saw this blue being in our bedroom and it started to talk to me. And I was like, yes, I've like cracked. So that's like a bit a mini awakening from someone who obviously really supports my journey, but doesn't really understand that. So it's kind of opened like a bit of a galactic thing for them now as well.
Yes, I love that. And I know that you work with all different galactics, and other energetics in your healing space. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that sort of opened and expanded for you and how you work with each sort of group?
Yeah. So after my awakening, obviously I didn't even know anything about aliens. And then basically for some reason, Saint just flagged an alien book by Barbara Marcinak. Do you know Bringers of the Dawn? So basically I read. I didn't even know what a Pleiadian was. And by this point, by the way, this is really funny because I had long blonde hair like you, Jamie, and obviously I've got blue eyes. And the day before, so basically I read that book, and then I ended up reading 7 Pleiadian books after that. I was like obsessed with Pleiadians, but I had no understanding why. And then I remember, obviously, when I had my hair like you, I was going to get it cut off, and I walked past a mirror, and I was like, oh my God, I look like an effing Pleiadian. And I was like, there was obviously some kind of remembrance there. And then basically I know Elizabeth April, and at that point, when you first awaken, you like have sessions with people, and Elizabeth was like, do you know what a Pleiadian is? And I was like, yeah, I've just read 7 books. She was like, basically your parallel self is a guy called a Pleiadian called Andreas, and he works for the Galactic Federation, which my t-shirt's based on, and he works with me in my energy healings. But along the journey, I remembered like Altorian lives and like Phoenician, and I work with Ascended Masters as well. And this is a really funny story. I have to tell you this. So I do like a Starseed activation and a Lightworker activation. And beginning of October, someone booked in for a session with me. And before the session, I connect with a picture. And normally I know my clients, I know who follows me on Instagram. So when people book, I would use that picture on Instagram. So I messaged them saying, can you send me a picture? So he sent me a picture. We done the session the following week. And I was like, oh, can I ask you, how did you know about me? And she was like, I don't. And I was like, oh, okay. Why did you book a session then? And she was like, because my guides, I was in meditation. My guide said, you need a Starseed activation session with Andrew Lethbridge. Spelt your surname. I put it into Google, and then booked the session with you. And they said, tell you that you need to activate me. So I was like, oh my God, that is so cool. Who's your guides? So I was like, who is your guides? And she was like, the Pleiadians. And I was like, oh my God, that is like crazy.
Love it.
And now my PRs, I'm loving like the Pleiadians being my public relations.
Yeah, that's very, very specific. So you are working with the Pleiadians, Arcturians, I think Lyrians as well. Do you feel then, because you're talking about working with them in different capacities, do you feel different energetic signatures when you're tapping in? Like, is it very obvious who's coming into your field?
So I call them, so like the Victorians, I've got different kind of energy to the Pleiadians, and also I work with like Saint Germain with the purple flame, and I use the white flame as well. So just I'm intuitively told what to use in sessions, and probably like 6 months ago in a session, I got told to call Isis, and I didn't really know much about Egypt. So I was like, Isis, can you help me? And I was working on a female sacral, and we activated the divine feminine in my client's sacral. And obviously, as you know, I went to Ibiza at the beginning of October, and my friend's a channel, and she was like, Isis is here to speak to you. So I was like, I just started to like cry. And I didn't even know why. Now you just have a reaction of like crying. And she said, basically, I trained the high priest and priestesses in Egypt, and I helped Isis like with I was almost like a brother to her. She said, I actually had to ask if you two are lovers because you just seem so close. And she said, no, you was like a brother, and you actually helped her with her gifts and that. So she wants to come back to this life and help me. But it was so weird because I'd never even heard of Isis till I got told to call. So Saint just says, cause I get like downloads. So even though I don't always see, I kind of like, I'm like, they like call Isis. I'm like, I invoke Isis, and then I feel the energy runs through me. It looks differently with my eyes closed, I see energy. So yeah, so it's just like crazy. Like I didn't even know any of this could exist. So it's just been a crazy like 3 years.
I bet. And you mentioned you had an experience when you were younger, and you also mentioned just kind of like this experience activating your psychic gifts. When you look back, though, do you remember any other kind of mystical experiences prior to, or did it really all happen with this awakening?
Well, when I remember once actually, and actually I was speaking to my mum about this the other day, and we were laughing. So obviously, that fly of light come into my room like an astral fly.
Yep.
When I was young, I remember waking up. I was like super young, and I woke up and there was like an ant's nest floating in my bedroom, and it was like an astral, and there was all ants there. So I started to scream, and my mum come in, but obviously when she come in, it just disappeared. And my mum was like, "Oh, you've had a dream." And I was like, "Mum, they were definitely there." So at that time, now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, that was exactly kind of what I saw when I was young. But obviously at that point, your mum's like, you've had a bad dream. And obviously I was crying. So then she obviously put me back to bed. And if only she had some Palo Santo to like sage or whatever the house out at the time.
Well, you worked with galactics, or you do work with galactics in all different ways, and have had different kinds of experiences. Have you had a UFO experience? I don't think I've asked you about this.
No, so I haven't actually had a UFO experience, but so last October, which is a year ago, it was like, so I was going to Peru at the beginning of November, and basically I woke up during the night and I was in a bit of a panic because now you feel like I'm really good with energy. So I know there's like a change of energy. So I got up straight out of bed and I was like, there is someone in my flat. So I went around, sorry, it's not my microphone. I went around the flat, there was no one there. And I was like, that's so weird. There's someone definitely been in the flat. The door was locked. My partner and my cat was asleep. I was like, maybe I've just kind of, something weird has gone on. Anyway, the next morning I got up to go to the gym and I had a shower before I went. And when I took my top off, as I went in the shower, I had 5 circles going down my shoulder and they were like big, smaller, smaller, smaller. So I was like, that is really weird. So obviously I went to the bed to check if there was something there and there was nothing in the bed. So I was like, I have no idea. But also they, like, as the days went on, they started to go like bright red, like almost like cigarette burns down my shoulder. And even though I am dealing with these crazy galactics and like stuff in sessions, I am really human as well. So basically I spoke to my friend and I said, I know somebody's been like abducted and I've seen similar marks, but what do you think? And she said, well, speak to the doctor. So I was like, I'm just going to go to the doctor because it's always good to check, isn't it? Just in case. And the doctor checked him and she was like, I have no idea what that is. Like the symmetry, the way they get smaller. She was like, it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. How are you feeling? And I was like, I feel like amazing. So she was like, honestly, don't know what to say, but if it gets worse, come back. But I'm really sorry, I don't know. So at that point I was like, but obviously part of my journey, a lot of crazy stuff's happened to me over the last 3 years. So I just roll with it because I feel like what happens for some people, they just keep churning it over their mind, don't they? And they almost like feel they're going a bit mad. So I just roll with it. So I'm like, cool, I've got some circles. I took some photos of them so I can actually share them if anyone wants to see them. And I think they're already on my Instagram. So that happened like second week of October. The first week I went the mid-November, I went to Peru to do ayahuasca. I went for 17 days. We done ayahuasca the first 2 days, and it was kind of like the end of the trip. And I went back to my room. It was like 10:30, and I was at the headboard. I had a big bed, and I was sitting at the headboard just on my phone. And then the next thing I know, I was pulled down. My body was paralyzed, and I couldn't open my eyes. And my body was being pulled down the bed. And I'm going to be really honest, Jamie. I actually thought I was being kidnapped in Peru I actually thought it was by someone in the hotel, and I could feel them doing stuff to my body. So obviously I was like, oh my God, something really bad is going to happen to me? But then something's like, it was almost like telepathy said, like, just breathe. So I started to breathe, and my gift works. I just get downloads, and it's like a knowing, and I like 100% know it happened. And I could see 3 greys in the room. And then basically I was like awake, and then I passed out, and then basically they inserted something into my root chakra, and it was like a physical thing. It was like I felt the tingling, and I could feel it into my crown chakra as well. And then I was pulled along the bed. Like by this point, my legs were hanging off the bottom of the bed, and then I passed out again, woke up again, and it felt like energy was running through my body. I mean, it's so weird because I was actually less scared when I saw the greys and when I thought I was getting kidnapped in Peru, if I'm being totally honest. And also because they were like, breathe, saying in my mind, it was my voice just saying, you're fine, just breathe. And then like a couple of minutes later, I literally managed to get off the bed. And honestly, I was like traumatized at that point. I rang my partner and they were like, calm down, what's gone on? And I was like, something's happened to me on the bed. Something, I know it sounds crazy, but entered my root chakra and my crown chakra. And to be honest, at that point, I ended up coming back from Peru early because I was like, even though it was okay, it was scary. It was like a scary event as well at that point. So I ended up coming back from Peru early. And when I got back, I know, as I mentioned, I know Elizabeth April. So I just shot her an email and said, hey, some weird stuff's been happening for me. Could we book a session? And she was so lovely. And she said, yeah, of course. So basically she remote viewed the room and she was like, and I didn't tell her anything. What I said, I just said like something crazy happened in the room. And also I've had some stuff on my body. So she remote viewed the room in Peru. So if anyone doesn't know what remote view is, Elizabeth can go out of her body and she can go to that event and like see what's going on in the room. So she said there was 3 greys like moving my body, and I'd not told her that I'd seen 3 greys because I was like, she's going to think I'm crazy. There was a mantis who was actually doing the operation. So they was like doing something to my energy system. She said to my root chakra and to my crown, which is what I felt. And she said at the back, near my bathroom, and I've obviously not explained the room situation. So she said at the back, there was 2 Pleiadians there overseeing it, but they were like energetically there and not physically there. So that kind of explained it. And then the really crazy thing was after that happened to me, I started to see my clients who have sessions with me all the time. The first client was like, is it normal to see an alien in my session? And I was like, kind of. And then the second person, her mum died when she was young, and her mum come through and started to speak to her. So it wasn't even I was seeing all these things. All these people were experiencing these crazy situations. And then everyone was like, oh my God, your energy's like, it's like doing like mushrooms or psilocybin or San Pedro. So everyone was having like really, really trippy sessions, but like super healing. So obviously they'd done something to my energy like system. I still actually don't know what has happened, but it's obviously part of my process. And then, do you know Wendy Kennedy, who channels the P's? So she's quite a famous channeler, and basically I'd done a group session with her, and I said, basically I've had situations where, because after I got back from Peru, it happened twice at home as well. So I just said, can you tell me what's been going on? And she actually said, you're part of the hybrid program. They used to take your mum, but she used to get really scared, so they moved on to you. And because you're super emotional, which is an understatement, Jamie, they've been like using my genetics and mixing with the hybrids. And I said, have I got any hybrid children? And she said, yeah. So I've got like, I know this is totally crazy, by the way. I'm not mad, everyone. But and also the really weird thing was I feel more grounded the last 3 years than I ever felt before in my whole life.
So do you ever connect with your hybrid children? Like after that, have you had any additional contacts or connections?
Not yet, no. But I feel like, obviously I'm like 3 years into my journey, so I just feel like everything's just like opening up for me at the moment. So I'm kind of just like having gratitude for like my energy and my downloads, and I just feel like, and also I do channel, but I do writing, and in sessions I just get told things, some crazy things that I'd never know. And I'm like for example, I kept seeing like Thelma and Louise in someone's session, and I was like, this is really crazy, but I keep seeing you in the back of a car driving off a cliff with a hairnet and a friend. She was like, oh my God, that's my favorite film. And also I've just got divorced, and she showed me a card, what was off camera, from her dad saying, don't do a Thelma and Louise and like drive off a cliff. Like I would never know, I've not even seen that film, Jamie, but I just obviously know that image. So I get like crazy downloads, but I'm not like, like you're a top channeler. That's not happened for me yet.
Well, that's, it's nice to have that validation, and it doesn't always make sense to you as channeling that, but it's going to make sense to the other person, and they're able to validate it. And that's amazing. I love that. What about with the mediumship? So you had that experience, with your dad. Is that something that has happened since then?
No.
Or in sessions?
So I felt like at the beginning, everything kind of opened up, but then it almost like, I think it was probably too much, like ongoing. That would be like everything all at once. So I think it's kind of like, And obviously I've been on a journey for myself, because it's like, even though I've had an awakening, I've had to go back and do a lot of shadow work, as we know. And shadow work, I mean, as I said off camera, I've just had a month of like a purge, ego deaths. I've had more ego deaths this year than a cat's had lives. It's like, I've had like totally like, the more I dive into myself and clear that, the more I can dive with my clients. So even though, as we know, shadow work is like hideous, actually you get to the end of it and you like, I feel such a better human.
Yeah. Well, you know, the things that you say, I just want to share. Nothing you can say is crazy in this space. So share away. But
well,
what
this is the first time I've actually shared it on someone else's platform, but I've actually shared it on my YouTube. And actually, I've never had any negative comments, actually. So I don't know, maybe I think because I've always try and ground the information where it can be, because obviously I didn't believe in, and I always say I didn't believe in aliens, I didn't believe in UFOs, and now I do. And this is like something this is going to be, I keep having dreams, Jamie, like crazy vivid dreams where like UFOs are like, there's like hundreds in the sky, and then like the military send all their planes out and they're like, everyone go home for 10 days. You have to stay home for 10 days. So I've been having like really crazy dreams. And then also like a big like building in New York, for example, on fire, and everyone's on the roof, and then a UFO comes and like collects these people. And this is like, not like a dream. It's almost like I'm kind of being seeded of what's to come.
Yeah. And what are your feelings then toward that? Does it feel like, are you getting a more benevolent connection with ETs that are coming and helping in a positive capacity? Or does it feel like there's some kind of destruction that's connected to them that's going to occur? What are your feelings on that?
Well, I feel like humans, there's like positive and negative, but I feel like the ones that are trying, like the Pleiadians, Nocturians, are trying to help us. And obviously, this is my Galactic Federation T-shirt with the energy. And also, I was like, oh my God, if they actually do come down, they're going to be like, we want a cut of your T-shirts. You've been selling unofficial merch with us for a while. No, I honestly feel like it's going to happen. I'm not sure when. I know a lot of people are saying 26, 27, but I'm kind of ready. And I don't know, I just feel like I'm totally open. I'm not scared of that happening. And I believe that we've had many lives, like good or bad. And that's a thing, like there's bad stuff going on in the world, but I'm sure we've had previous lives where we've been the bad people. And it's all about, for me, about lessons and growth. So I look at everything totally different to most people. When like there's situations going on, I'm like, we've all signed up to this. This is our contractual, like, to be the bully, to be the victim. Like, and when anything happens to me, I'm like, I've contracted for this. I know sometimes it's really hard to have that mindset, but it is, we have signed up to be here. We're lucky to get a body. Most energies haven't got bodies, have they? So we've kind of won the lottery. And yeah, Earth can be tough. I'm not loving it all the time. And just going back to after my awakening, even before the Pleiadian thing, actually, I'd seen my friend who actually cleared my energy, who gave me the Reiki session. And I said to her, it's really weird. I keep staring at the sky and it's almost like I want to go home and almost feel like I don't want to be on Earth. And at that point, I didn't understand like this whole galactic thing at that point, but I knew that I need to go home, wherever that may be.
Yeah, that's one of the things that can be, challenging here too. But you said all of the beautiful parts of it as well. Yeah. There are the challenges, but once you get into sort of that deeper exploration and your memories are activated and you realize, okay, all of these things that I judge other people for, I've been all of these things, right? Which really gets us to that compassion. And if you believe that we all come from source, then we really have to come to an even bigger, revelation, which is that we're all one and the same in a way like that. So that's not uncommon, but the key, and you talked about this a little bit too, on some other pieces, which is activating the light body, which you have to be in the physical body to kind of, feel those things. And what you experience with your awakening, it's not uncommon to kind of miss that home. But there's also a perspective that we can bring that frequency through here, right? And this is kind of why we came. I don't know what your take is on that, but.
Well, also, you said something about being grounded into the body. And I find that really, because obviously the first year I was probably so ungrounded in my body. And the last 2 years, I've really been working on being grounded. And I see a lot of, obviously, I do a Starseed activation. And a lot of Starseeds aren't good in human life. So part of that activation obviously is to activate their psychic gifts, but also to ground them, because it's so important, because a lot of them don't, like, I see a lot of people who are suicidal and don't want to be here, or just not very good at human life. So part of that activation is to like really ground all their chakras and make them enjoy their life. And that's what and I always say this, like my energy, so basically I do a group session, and sometimes I get like 20, 30 people come, and after session, literally 99% people message me or email me afterwards and say, I've had this, or I've had a shift, and it's just so beautiful. And it's not about like galactic. These people who are seeing me aren't like necessarily coming to talk about Octorians, even though I'm not necessarily saying I'm using Octorian energy on you or Pleiadian, but they're feeling the benefits and their life's getting really good and they're just feeling really happy. And life is really tough. Like I remember before this happened to me, it's really, really difficult. It can be really tough. And if you're on your own, but everything is within, and that's so difficult. I know when you're not there and you're not in that heart chakra, it's so difficult to explain that to someone.
Yeah, we need, well, at least for myself, I like to say we need, constant reminders being in the human, because it's almost like that part of us can forget. The ego makes us forget constantly. So we rely on each other, or teachers, our etheric teachers, just to help keep reminding us, and some people, just to recognize their gifts that they bring to the world, and that they're doing stuff even, often when they don't feel they are. Andrew, what you mentioned, even with that experience you had with having the grays come in your field, you mentioned like that they were interdimensionally. Well, that can happen through this remote intelligence field. So it sounds like in your sessions, even though that might not be an intention, you are creating that connection for some people, and they're bringing those energies through. Not only through you bringing them through the energy field, but they're making those connections with them, which is really
definitely
cool.
And also, like, for example, like some of my clients who, like, they're totally normal. Like, I've got very glamorous, like, females that come and see me. They're like stunning and beautiful. Then after a while, like, a couple of them have been like, I feel like I might not be from Earth. Is that normal? Like, these are people who have the best social life, and it's just great to see them like starting to open. And then I done a session the other day, basically, and I was seeing like this person surrounded by like high priestess, and she at the end she was like, "Oh my God, is it weird? I felt like I was surrounded by high priestess." So I was like, "No," because I write notes. So I showed you on the camera. So it's just we just need to be open, but. What I do see actually is like lack of love from people for themselves, and just like thinking they should be somewhere in their journey where they're not. And I always say you're exactly where you need to be. If you need to be somewhere else, your soul would have made that happen. And just sometimes just being reassuring. And I never try and be like, you should be doing this. I just try and say you're doing so well. Be compassionate to yourself, because I feel like there's not enough compassion for ourselves. I think people are more compassionate with others than they are with themselves. I'm sure we've all been there, but that's what I find with my clients.
100%. That's what I remember, a message coming through, even keys of abundance from the Arcturian perspective was the number one thing was self-love, right? So it's not just about loving what you do and loving the people you do it for, but you have to have that self-love, or else, it's going to be very difficult to get to that state of joy.
Yeah. And also, like, for example, I've had body issues. I was anorexic, and basically I put all this over Instagram. And like when I shared that I had body issues and anorexic, and I also took laxatives, someone actually reached, and sometimes you put stuff out on social media and you're like, does anyone even read this? And actually, someone messaged me saying that I've been taking laxatives for 15 years every day, and I saw your post and I've stopped taking them. And since I've spoken to them since in the last year and a half, they haven't taken it. So it's just like, even that, just to be able to reach someone, and that is going to change your life, just not abusing your body and finding a bit more self-love to yourself. And also, like, someone I know in real life, I don't know them that well, and basically they come up to me and said, oh, like, I saw you share that on Instagram, and no one knows this, but I used to have a really bad drug problem, and I just want to share that with you. And I was just like, what a beautiful share to share that, just obviously by them telling me they've moved on from that as well. So I feel like if we're all a little bit honest, and like share more about ourselves, that other people are feeling that as well.
That's beautiful. I love your vulnerability and candor, and to give other people permission to do the same, when you're doing that as a way shower. So you mentioned self-love, which is so huge. Would you say, like, if you're kind of looking at your experience and everything that you've sort of taken in with your own divine wisdom and messages and experiences, what would you say is your guidance to other people who might be just exploring the healing path?
I just think it's like, you just got to, like, we are like, and I think everyone looks outside of themselves. And I see this with all my clients as well. They have lots of sessions with lots of different people. And I'm like, you don't need that. You don't even need to come and see me. You can heal yourself. It's good to have guidance if you need it. But even just like pick one like person to work with and work with that and get them to teach you. And a lot of my clients, I become redundant after a while, because I teach them how to like clear their energy, how to use a pendulum to clear like entities or like bad vibrations off them and stuff like that. So after a while, I might not necessarily see them, but they like message me on Instagram saying, I missed you, but obviously they don't need me anymore. And you need to be able to teach people how to, like, there's no point me like just keep healing them and not showing them how to heal themselves. See, it's about empowering them, and just, I think within that process they find more self-love. And it is a process as well. Like this year, so I've obviously been a gay man. Obviously, I used to be very vain. I used to like do a lot to my appearance, and this year, like, I've done no work, and I've turned 46, and like starting to see like lines on your face. Obviously, I've got good light in here today, but that's a whole process of self-acceptance as well, which like I'm going through as well. So we don't need to like look outside of ourselves, try and look like something from a magazine. Like anything that we think negative about ourselves is fake news. It's BS, because we are divine. Like, obviously we've got God in us, which we all have. We are amazing. And I think that's what we all just need to remember. It is a process.
It is. Yes. Thank you for sharing that piece of it, because sometimes we're looking for, I can just go for one session, right? And then it's a one and done deal. And, but what you said was, I really honor and respect about people in this space that are looking to empower other people, like you said. So it's not to say I am the guru, I know, all of the things, but here is what I have learned, and here, use your discernment, take with it what you will, and hopefully you're empowering yourself.
And also, like, I've got friends, obviously, like, for example, if someone said to me and said, do you know a channel? I'd give your name. I'm not one of the, I would recommend people out. And sometimes if I don't feel like I'm the right person for the job, I see like, you need to go and see this person because they can really help you. But also there is a lot of people out there who are like, you need like 3 sessions a week. And that's not always the way forward as well, because I think that can change your frequency when too many people are working on you, and you almost need to find that frequency within yourself.
Yes, definitely. And I just wanted to circle back just for a moment to the plant medicine. I just had one other question. Well, one, I think it's cool because, doing that, then carry the energy and, bring that through the energy of the medicine, which is such a, a beautiful experience to explore, because it really is a path of direct revelation, meaning I know this to be true because I experienced it. Myself. And you mentioned ayahuasca. Were there any other plant medicines that you explored, or was it just that one experience with ayahuasca?
Well, that's a question in itself. So obviously, as I said, before my awakening, I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. I've actually not drunk for like I think it's like 3 years now. And then after I had my awakening, suddenly like ayahuasca started to call me, which I was like, why do I suddenly want to do ayahuasca? But before I went to do ayahuasca, I'd done San Pedro, which is a cactus. And that was another pivotal point for me, because obviously I had my awakening in March, and then I think it was like August, I went on we done 3 days in a row of San Pedro. And the first day, it was really funny because everyone was like, oh, I'm seeing this. And obviously at that point I was like I was seeing a lot. And that day I just went really normal. So I went to speak to the woman and said to her, I haven't come here to be normal. I've come here to, she said, but it's giving you what you need. You need to be grounded. So I got grounded that night. Well, I wasn't very happy, Jamie, because I was like, I want to go to the sky. But at that point, I wasn't like galactic-y. And then the second night, I remember it was like I was in a computer game. I was going through dimensions, and it was like, we are in The Sims. It was like crazy. I was seeing like, and do you know what's really funny? That night, I was like, I knew I could manifest anything. So when I was in my San Pedro, I was like, I'm going to fly business back from, it was actually in Portugal. And the next morning I woke up, checked my email, and I got an email from the flight company to say I'd been upgraded. How crazy is that? But it was totally, I was feeling, right in. Yeah, but I was like, I should have called the lottery or something. Not just for some reason. I was like, I'm just going to, because obviously it was just kind of in my head, because I was like, we're in the computer system. So it was almost like I sent it up to the base unit. And then on the third day was crazy because the whole galactic thing started to open up in me. And then we was in like a yoga studio doing San Pedro. And I started to see like being on a spaceship, like pods. And I started to remember that me and my friend had a past life where we were reptiles, which I didn't even know what a reptile was at this point. And we were like good reptiles, and we worked for the Galactic Federation. And then one of the girls there, actually, this is a cool story. I kept seeing that we were brother and sister in another life. And I didn't tell her, I didn't know her, and I thought she's going to think I'm crazy. Anyway, when we left Portugal, she stayed there for a couple of days, and basically started to get downloads from, I don't know where, from, saying that I need to do T-shirts with energy. And then that night, we both dreamed of each other. We were both levitating at the same dream and sharing energy back and forth. So when she got back from Portugal, I said, oh, I think we need to meet up. And she said, yeah, I do. And I've got a message for you. So when we met up, I was like, by the way, you used to be my sister. And she was like, oh my God, this makes sense, because I'm getting messages for you about doing like T-shirts with energy in. And at that point, I was like, oh no, I don't want to do it. And then Elizabeth told me, your guides are saying, do the T-shirts. I didn't want to do it. Another psychic, I met a psychic, and she was like, your guides are saying, why have you not done these T-shirts? And I was like, oh my God, I'm just going to do the T-shirts now. So the guides wanted me to do bring energy to fashion, because obviously these are organic cotton, non-toxic prints. Sorry, I've totally gone off waylay there, Jamie.
No, actually, this isn't, I'm not surprised. Intuitively, you're answering my next question, which was going to be, tell us a little bit about your clothing line, because we just have a little bit here, and that was something I wanted to bring into this space.
Yeah, so obviously I didn't, because obviously I've been in fashion for 25 years. I was totally ready to walk away from that and not do that anymore. But obviously everyone kept saying, the guides are saying, your guides. So in the end, I just gave in. And when I launched, they were really successful. I had some top people who Tracy Anderson, who trains Gwyneth Paltrow and Madonna. She wore it, and basically I had 300,000 people come on my website, just some crazy cool people. She's very into energy. So yeah, everything's organic cotton, non-toxic prints. And there's light language in the bodies. This is the Galactic Federation. This is my cat there as a Lyran. So this is my cat Milo. So I put him in there as well. So everything's got a spiritual meaning in all the T-shirts. And just when everyone wears them, they're I just feel so good in your T-shirt. So I think it's my contribution to the world to have some just cool high energy T-shirts and hoodies.
I love it. Yeah. And like you said, raising frequency of industry. And is that your favorite one that you have? Model it for us.
So I have, This one, and basically I do like auras, so like chakra colors and aura colors with just a heel, and they're like my best selling like hoodies. So you can check them out on my like website or on Instagram. But yeah, they're super cool, and that's what normally I'm wearing, like super casual. And also when I do my clients, because there's like protection and symbols within them, they like protect me while I'm doing sessions as well.
Very cool. Well, Andrew, how can the people, I know we have your site listed, but just if you want to share on here how people can work with you and maybe what you have coming up.
Yeah. Okay, so my website's www.healbyandrewlethbridge.com, and that's my username, healbyandrewlethbridge, on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And yeah, I do like one-to-ones, cosmic energy, and I started to do groups recently. And there's just something so beautiful about being like when the whole group's in a container healing together. And obviously, I give you a full energy session, and then at the end, people share, and it's just so beautiful to hear like their shares, or some people saying, I was floating out my body, and just everyone's on that vibration of healing. And it's just, yeah, I've just had so many messages afterwards. So, and it's really affordable. I wanted to make energy really affordable. So anyone who's interested in energy, check it out. It's every other Sunday, and it's super affordable. And Jamie, I'd love for you to come.
All right, sign me up. So there you have it. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone listening and watching. And until next time, may you find peace in the mysteries of the cosmos. Much love.
Thank you for having me.